Imagine being richer than almost everyone on Earth, living inside historic palaces, surrounded by luxury most people only see in movies. But you're not allowed to eat certain foods. You might not be allowed to sit on the same airplane as your own child. And you could be forced to stop eating dinner, just because one person at the table finishes first. Welcome to the British royal family, where unimaginable privilege often comes with rules that feel less like tradition and more like a carefully decorated prison. From the outside, royal life looks like a fairy tale. Crowns covered in diamonds. Castles older than entire countries. Global fame and influence. But behind those palace gates exists a rulebook so strict, so bizarre, it sometimes feels like it was written hundreds of years ago and never updated. Some rules exist to protect the monarchy. Some survive purely because tradition refuses to disappear. And some, honestly, feel like quiet reminders that royal life is controlled down to the smallest detail. And once you hear these rules, you might start seeing royalty very differently. Let's open the royal rulebook. Because it gets strange, fast. Rule 1. Royals aren't always allowed to fly together. At first, this rule sounds dramatic, but it exists for a very serious reason. Inside royal protocol, senior family members are often discouraged, and sometimes completely forbidden, from traveling on the same aircraft. The logic is brutally simple. If a plane crashes, the monarchy cannot risk losing multiple heirs to the throne at the same time. Imagine planning a family vacation, where your own child might have to board a completely separate flight. Not because of scheduling conflicts. Not because of safety comfort. But because centuries of royal planning are built around protecting bloodlines. That's not travel planning. That's generational risk management disguised as luxury travel. Rule 2. Some competitive games are quietly discouraged. Now this one sounds almost ridiculous, until you understand the psychology behind it. Historically, certain royals were discouraged from playing highly competitive board games like Monopoly. Not because games are dangerous, but because they can trigger arguments, tension, and emotional reactions inside one of the most publicly observed families in the world. When your family represents national stability, even small disagreements can be seen as image risks. Imagine arguments breaking out inside palace walls, over plastic hotels and fake money, while millions of people view your family as a symbol of control and tradition. It sounds funny. But for a family whose reputation is carefully protected, even casual competition can become uncomfortable. Rule 3. Seafood is often avoided during travel. Owning priceless jewels and private chefs sounds incredible, until entire food categories are removed from your diet. Royal family members often avoid eating shellfish when traveling internationally. No shrimp. No oysters. No lobster. The reason isn't taste. It's risk. Seafood carries a higher chance of food poisoning, and even a minor illness involving a royal family member could disrupt diplomatic meetings, international visits, and global media coverage. Imagine world leaders preparing for an official event, while headlines explode because a royal heir became sick from dinner. So instead of taking chances, they simply remove seafood entirely from official menus. Unlimited luxury. But seafood becomes off-limits. Rule 4. Garlic was quietly removed from royal meals. Yes, garlic. For decades, palace chefs avoided using garlic during formal royal events. The reasoning was surprisingly practical. Royal family members regularly meet diplomats, politicians, and global leaders face-to-face, often at extremely close distances. And strong breath odors were considered potentially embarrassing during high-level conversations. Imagine living in historic palaces, wearing priceless jewelry, attending global ceremonies. But garlic bread becomes a forbidden luxury. Elegance sometimes comes with very strange sacrifices. Rule 5. Royals must pack funeral clothing when traveling. This rule might be the most unsettling travel tradition of all. Every time senior royals travel internationally, they pack a completely black mourning outfit in their luggage. Not for fashion. Not for emergencies involving weather or events. The outfit exists in case a member of the royal family dies while they are abroad. The rule was created decades ago after a royal returned from travel following a family death, but had no appropriate mourning clothing available upon arrival. She had to remain inside her aircraft until proper clothing was delivered. Since then, the tradition has never changed. Every royal suitcase quietly carries a reminder that tragedy must always be planned for, even during vacations. Luxury travel, with built-in grief preparation. Rule 6. Royals rarely sign autographs. Being globally famous usually means constant fan interactions. But royal signatures are treated very differently. Most royal family members are discouraged from signing random autographs for the public. Not because they don't appreciate fans, but because their signatures can be forged, sold, or used in security risks. Think about that. You are one of the most recognizable people on Earth, and you're discouraged from giving someone a simple handwritten signature. You aren't just famous. You become something closer to a protected national symbol. Rule 7. Dinner ends when the monarch stops eating. This rule sounds almost fictional, but it remains part of royal dining etiquette. During formal royal dinners, once the monarch finishes eating, every other guest must immediately stop eating as well. It doesn't matter if your plate is still full. It doesn't matter how expensive or carefully prepared the meal is. Forks go down. Conversation continues. The dinner is considered finished. Imagine sitting at one of the most luxurious dinner tables on Earth, still hungry, but tradition demands silence and obedience. Royal dining isn't just about food. It's choreography. Royal life often looks glamorous from a distance. But inside palace walls, daily routines are carefully controlled by traditions older than most countries. Every meal, every flight, every public interaction is shaped by rules designed to protect image, hierarchy, and continuity. And honestly, these lifestyle rules are just the beginning. Because the next part of the royal rulebook becomes even more intense. We're about to step into the rules that control how royals speak, what opinions they're allowed to have, how they must treat their own family members, and the hidden hierarchy that determines who walks into a room first, and who must follow behind. And one of those rules? It forces powerful adults to bow to family members every single day. You think being royal means unlimited power? Now I will reveal why royal influence often comes with complete personal silence. Where the rules stop being strange and start becoming psychological. Because behind the crowns and ceremonies lies something far more restrictive. Silence. For the British royal family, power doesn't come from speaking freely. It comes from knowing when to say absolutely nothing. And this is where royal life starts feeling less like privilege and more like obligation. Rule 8. Royals are forbidden from voting. Imagine living in a democracy, watching elections unfold, seeing laws passed that affect your future, and never being allowed to vote. British royals are strictly forbidden from participating in elections. No ballots. No political choices. No public opinions. The reason is simple: the monarchy must remain politically neutral at all costs. One royal opinion could influence millions of people and shake the government itself. So instead of having a voice, royals are trained to smile, wave, and stay silent. Imagine being surrounded by power, yet having no political voice at all. Rule 9. Public opinions are extremely dangerous. Voting isn't the only thing royals lose. They're also expected to avoid expressing personal political opinions publicly, even when laws directly affect their own lives. A single careless sentence, a misunderstood comment, a poorly worded statement, and suddenly it's not gossip, it's a constitutional crisis. That's why royals master the art of saying nothing while appearing gracious. Luxury, but censored. Rule 10. You must bow to your own family every day. Hierarchy inside the palace is impossible to ignore. Even grown adult royals are expected to bow or curtsy to the king and queen the first time they see them each day. It doesn't matter if it's morning. It doesn't matter if you're exhausted. It doesn't matter if that person is your parent. Protocol always comes first. Imagine having to bow to your own father before you've even had your first cup of coffee. Inside the palace, respect isn't emotional. It's mandatory. Rule 11. There's a physical order of power. When royals enter a room, it's never random. There's a strict order of precedence, a visible hierarchy that dictates who enters first and who follows behind. The closer you are to the throne, the earlier you enter. Lower-ranking royals walk behind, always. It's a constant, silent reminder of where you stand inside the family. You don't forget your position. It literally walks in front of you. Rule 12, even royal names aren't normal. Identity inside the monarchy works differently. The king doesn't use a traditional last name like regular people. His official signature is simply his first name, followed by a single letter. Ah! It stands for Rex, king. No surname. No explanation. No need. When you are the crown, identity becomes branding. Rule 13. The monarch technically has legal authority over royal children. This rule feels ancient, because it is. There is an old law stating that the monarch technically holds legal custody over his minor grandchildren. The rule was created centuries ago to control royal bloodlines, education, and succession planning. While it's rarely enforced in modern times, it still exists on paper. Meaning officially, the crown outranks parents. That's not family. That's dynasty management. Rule 14. You don't turn your back on the monarch. Even conversations follow strict choreography. When speaking to the monarch, protocol discourages turning your back on them when leaving. Instead, you step backward slightly, pause, then turn away. It's meant to show respect. But in reality, it feels like a polite retreat from power. Awkward? Yes. Symbolic? Extremely. Rule 15. The king celebrates his birthday twice. Most people celebrate their birthday once a year. The king celebrates it twice. One on his actual birthday, and another during a massive public celebration chosen entirely for better weather. Cannons fire. Soldiers march. Streets shut down. All because tradition decided one birthday wasn't enough. Some people get cake. Others get artillery. Hierarchy, silence, and symbolism shape every royal interaction. Inside the palace, power isn't loud. It's quiet, structured, and always watching. Every bow, every step, every word left unsaid. It reinforces one message. The monarchy must always appear stable, even if the people inside it feel anything but free. And somehow, this still isn't the most unsettling part of the royal rulebook. Because in next part, we're crossing into territory that feels almost unreal. Rules that place the monarch above the justice system. Traditions involving ceremonial hostages. Power that allows one man to cross borders without a passport. And the strangest part? All of it is real. Now I will reveal why royal power sometimes feels less like leadership, and more like history refusing to let go. Where royal tradition crosses into something far stranger. Because the deeper you explore royal history, the more the monarchy starts to feel like a system built not just on leadership, but on symbolism, ritual, and power carefully preserved across centuries. Some of these rules sound unbelievable, but they still exist today. Rule 16. The monarch is protected by sovereign immunity. This rule sounds like something from fiction, but it's rooted in one of the oldest legal traditions in Britain. Under the principle of sovereign immunity, the monarch cannot be prosecuted in court. The monarch cannot be arrested. And technically, the monarch cannot be sued in the same way as ordinary citizens. In modern times, monarchs follow laws to maintain public trust and stability. But legally speaking, the protection still exists as part of constitutional tradition. Think about that for a moment. Every citizen lives under the law, except the person sitting at the very top of the system. It's one of the most powerful legal protections ever created, not written on paper cards or courtroom defenses, but embedded into the structure of the nation itself. Rule 17. The monarch travels without a passport. For most people, forgetting a passport means cancelled flights and long airport explanations. For the monarch, passports don't apply. British passports are issued in the monarch's name, which means technically, the monarch would be granting permission to themselves. So during official travel, the monarch can cross international borders without carrying a passport at all. Meanwhile, every other royal family member still follows normal travel procedures. That's not convenience. That's authority built directly into international recognition. Rule 18. Parliament once used a ceremonial hostage tradition. This tradition sounds almost medieval, because its origins are. When the monarch visits Parliament for certain ceremonial events, There has historically been a symbolic tradition where a member of Parliament is temporarily required to remain at Buckingham Palace until the monarch safely returns. Centuries ago, relationships between rulers and political leaders were often violent and unstable. The practice served as a symbolic guarantee of safety and trust. Today, it survives as ceremonial tradition, not enforcement. But the message remains deeply historical. Power remembers its past. Rule 19. Some lands still pay symbolic rent to the crown. Royal ownership extends far beyond palaces and estates. There are ancient agreements where certain lands technically owe ceremonial rent to the monarchy, not in money, but in symbolic items. In some cases, payments include a single red rose, a pair of ceremonial gloves, seasonal offerings preserved through tradition. These agreements date back hundreds of years, when symbolic tribute reinforced loyalty to the crown. Modern legal systems recognize these traditions as ceremonial, but they still exist as reminders of how long royal influence has shaped land ownership. Imagine paying rent using flowers or historic gifts, and the agreement being legally acknowledged. Rule 20. The King's Champion still exists. Historically, coronation ceremonies included a dramatic role known as the King's Champion. During medieval coronations, this figure would ride into royal banquets wearing armor, throw down a glove, and challenge anyone who questioned the monarch's right to rule. Today, the role remains ceremonial and symbolic. But the title still exists, preserving the image of someone sworn to defend the monarchy's legitimacy. In modern life, promotions often come through emails or announcements. In royal history, they sometimes arrived through ceremonial combat symbolism. Rule 21. Ancient rituals still influence government appointments. Royal ceremony has influenced government procedures for centuries. In one historic tradition, certain official confirmations were once symbolically approved using ceremonial tools rather than standard document signatures. The ritual originated from moments in royal history when symbolic gestures became permanent ceremonial practices. While modern procedures rely on legal documentation, these traditions remain part of ceremonial storytelling surrounding royal authority. Efficient? Not always. Historic? Absolutely. Rule 22. The monarch technically owns certain wild swans. This rule might be the most unexpectedly famous royal tradition. Under ancient law, the monarch technically claims ownership of all unmarked swans in specific waters across England and Wales. Each year, officials conduct a ceremonial counting and inspection event known as swan upping, where swans are identified and recorded in a tradition dating back to medieval times, when swans were considered luxury food reserved for royalty. Today, the event supports conservation and wildlife monitoring. But it remains a living example of how medieval authority still shapes ceremonial law. Power sometimes arrives with feathers. Rule 23. Royals don't personally own most gifts they receive. Royal family members receive thousands of gifts from the public every year: artwork, cultural items, handcrafted objects, and symbolic presents. But official protocol states that gifts received during royal duties belong to the crown itself, not to the individual royal. They cannot sell them. They rarely keep them personally. Most are archived or placed in official collections. Imagine someone giving you a meaningful gift, and you're required to hand it over to an institution the same day. It's not receiving a gift. It's managing a national collection. Rule 24. Royal childhood is carefully structured around tradition. Royal children grow up understanding hierarchy from a very early age. Naming traditions often draw from historical royal figures, emphasizing continuity over individuality. Certain clothing customs historically required young royal boys to wear formal shorts during public appearances until reaching specific ages, traditions linked to aristocratic class symbolism. Even holiday celebrations follow structured traditions, including gift exchanges designed to emphasize humor and modesty despite extraordinary wealth. Childhood inside the monarchy isn't just family life. It's preparation for roles defined long before birth. Rule 25. Royals are expected to maintain constant public composure. Perhaps the most powerful rule isn't written in law, but in expectation. Royal family members are trained to behave as though cameras are always watching, because they usually are. How they walk, how they sit, how they greet strangers, How they leave conversations. Every gesture becomes part of public image. Mistakes don't disappear. They become historical records. Royal life isn't temporary performance. It's permanent theatre. By now, one truth becomes impossible to ignore. The British monarchy isn't simply a family living inside castles. It's a living institution built from tradition, ritual, symbolism, and centuries of carefully preserved expectations. From the outside, royal life appears glamorous, filled with wealth, ceremony, and global attention. But inside palace walls, those privileges come with restrictions most people could never imagine. Freedom is often traded for continuity. Privacy is exchanged for legacy. Personal expression is balanced against national symbolism. It's why historians often describe monarchy as a golden cage. Beautiful on the outside, demanding on the inside. Some people dream of wearing a crown. Others realize the crown carries weight because it never truly comes off. So maybe the real question isn't whether royal power looks impressive. It's whether anyone could live under rules written centuries before they were born and still call it freedom. If this deep dive changed the way you see royal life, if it made you realize luxury doesn't always equal control, then you're already thinking beyond the crown. This is Royal Bits, where we uncover the hidden traditions, power structures, and untold rules behind history's most famous royal families. If you enjoyed this breakdown, support the channel with a like, subscribe for future royal deep dives, and tell us in the comments.